Hello.
Some moments carve themselves deep into our hearts, never fading. They linger like soft echoes, quiet but always there. It's been 3 years since that life-altering day. 3 years since everything I knew shifted forever. What started as a regular beach outing with my son, Liam, took a turn I never saw coming. My husband, Ethan, wasn't there. He often chose his job over us. Being alone had become my norm, a quiet shadow I'd grown used to. But that day felt different, somehow heavier. The sun blazed down, almost too hot, as Liam and I found our spot by the shore. I leaned back, finally escaping life's noise, and asked Liam to rub some sunscreen on my back. I didn't hesitate, just moved forward with the request. He's my son, my precious boy. Why did I ask him to do it? At first, it felt like no big deal, just his hands helping me out. But later, I realized something deeper was happening. I felt him slipping away, his presence fading, and I didn't stop it. Why didn't I? You think you know your own heart. You might believe you've got your family all figured out. But one single moment can unravel everything you thought was solid. That beach day changed my world forever. Ethan and I had been married for over 17 years. To anyone looking in, we were the perfect couple, nice house, great kids, a steady life. But beneath the surface, there were cracks nobody saw. The emptiness stayed hidden, a weight only I carried. Ethan's life revolved around his work, consumed by it completely. I never stepped in, never pushed back. On weekends or holidays, I told myself his long hours were for our family's future. But over time, that excuse started to fray. What's a home worth if it's always empty? When Ethan came back, I became invisible to him. He barely noticed I was there. He stopped asking about my feelings, my dreams, what I needed. Our talks were short, just about bills, groceries, or the kids. He adored Liam and his little sister, Ava, but even with them, he was like a ghost. He was in the room, but his mind was somewhere else. I'd sit across from him at the table, wondering if he even saw me that morning. I can still picture standing in the kitchen as Ethan rushed out. He grabbed his briefcase, gave Ava a quick kiss on her head, and glanced at me briefly, his eyes saying sorry without words. "Sorry, Emma, I can't come with you today," he said. "Something came up at work." I didn't argue, just nodded like always, my throat tight. I told myself it was fine. Liam, though, he was 17, tall and lean, giving me space to find my own way. His brown eyes, so like his father's, held a gentler light. He didn't say much when I told him it'd just be us two. With a shrug, he seemed used to Ethan's absences. He grabbed the bags and led me to the car. On the drive, I glanced at him in the passenger seat, earbuds in, staring out the window like any teenager would. A smile tugged at my lips. He was growing up so fast, and sometimes I worried I'd blink and he'd be gone. The road to the beach felt like it stretched forever. My mind drifted, as it often does, to Ethan. I thought of the times we used to share, long movie nights, lazy walks just for fun. Those memories brought back his gentle touch, the way his eyes used to spark when he looked at me. Those feelings had faded years ago, leaving me numb and tired from being unseen. Finally, we reached the beach, and Liam helped carry the bags to a quiet spot by the water. I smoothed out the towels while he set up the umbrella. A sudden urge to talk to him hit me, and I wasn't sure why. Maybe because he was my only company, or maybe I just needed someone to listen. Being outside felt so good, didn't it? I asked him. He nodded, brushing his hair back, trying to sound upbeat. "Yeah, Mom, it's pretty nice," he said. I stretched out on the towel, letting the sun warm my skin, and paused there, soaking in the quiet. For a moment, I tried to let go of the heaviness of the past few years, even if just for an hour. But then I remembered the sunscreen and turned to Liam. "Hey, can you help me put some on my back?" I asked. "I can't reach it." He glanced at me, hesitating before taking the bottle. I settled onto the towel, staring down, ready for what came next. His touch was soft at first, careful, like he didn't want to hurt me. I smiled, remembering when he was little, clutching my hand tightly as we crossed the street. His hands were so small then. A bit harder, I said softly. He listened, and as he rubbed the sunscreen into my shoulders, his hands grew steadier. I closed my eyes, feeling the warmth of his careful strokes along my back. For a brief moment, I let myself sink into it. It had been so long since anyone touched me, and that truth hit me harder than I wanted to admit. I soon felt Liam's hands moving lower, carefully tracing the curve of my spine with a gentle, deliberate touch. My breath hitched, and when I opened my mouth to speak, no words came out, just a heavy silence. I told myself it was okay, nothing to worry about. He said he was just helping, and I wondered if I was fooling myself. But I wasn't imagining it. His hands paused at the edge of my towel, and I sensed his hesitation, mirrored by a swirl of my own feelings. Instead of telling him to stop, I said, "It's okay, go ahead." The words felt heavy as they left my lips, and I knew instantly they'd linger, impossible to take back. Liam froze, silent. I squeezed my eyes shut, feeling his hands in a place that didn't feel right. My heart pounded so hard I thought he might hear it. I wanted to shift, to sit up, to tell him to stop, but I didn't. I couldn't let it happen. Even now, I'm not sure why I acted that way. Was it the loneliness eating at me? Or some desperate need to feel seen, no matter how wrong it was? Maybe I just didn't care. That day on the beach broke something inside me, changing who I was forever. If you're still following my story, I really appreciate you sticking with it. I know it's not easy to hear. If this resonates with you or you think someone else might connect with it, I'd be so grateful if you could like and subscribe. It helps me keep sharing these stories and feel connected to others out there. Now, let's get back to what happened. After that beach day, something shifted, and I couldn't ignore it. The feelings, the sights, the way Liam looked at me, they weren't fleeting. They held a stubborn weight. With every glance we shared, I saw something changing in him. It was something so deep I didn't want to name it, but I couldn't look away. That night, back home, I tried to act normal, like nothing had happened. I made a nice dinner, folded laundry late into the night with shaky hands, and asked Liam about school, pretending everything was fine. But my mind kept drifting back to that moment with him. The tension between us, the way it stirred something in me. I hated myself for feeling it and resented him for sparking those emotions about my own son. Ethan, as usual, had no idea. He came home late, tie loose, looking worn out. He brushed a kiss on my cheek, more out of routine than feeling, a faint reminder of what we used to have. I tried to start a conversation, but he just mumbled and nodded, heading to the living room. It was the same old pattern. He was there, but not really, leaving me invisible again. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while Ethan slept soundly beside me. The house was quiet, but inside me, everything was chaos. My thoughts kept circling back to Liam, his hands, his intense gaze. I knew those feelings were wrong. I told myself I had to stop whatever this was before it went too far. But a lonely, shadowed part of me wanted to hold on to it, craving the attention, the touch, the feeling of being noticed. As days went by, Liam's silence carried a weight louder than words. He didn't exactly pull away. Instead, he seemed to linger closer. I'd catch him watching me while I cooked, cleaned, or sat alone on the couch at night, and I let it happen. I didn't stop him. I didn't rein myself in. So, when the next weekend rolled around, the heat making the house feel suffocating, Ethan left for one more work shift, leaving Liam and me alone again. I asked him if he wanted to go back to the beach, just us two. I still wonder why I suggested it. Maybe I thought being outside would clear my head. Or maybe I was testing myself, seeing if I could untangle this mess. This time, the drive was calm, almost too quiet. Liam didn't wear his earbuds. He sat still, staring out the window, his knee bouncing with restless energy. I wanted to say something, anything, to break the silence, but every time I tried, the words stuck in my throat. When we reached the beach, it was almost deserted. The ocean sparkled blue, and a soft breeze brushed my skin. Like before, I spread out the towels while Liam helped set things up. I didn't ask him to put sunscreen on my back. Instead, I lay there, eyes closed, pretending to feel at peace. But even with my eyes shut, I could feel his gaze on me, heavy and intense. The real shift came later that day. Before we left, we decided to rinse off the sand at the beach showers. It was supposed to be quick, just to clean up. But something unthinkable happened. Liam stepped under the water first, letting it stream down his back. I glanced at him from the corner of my eye for a moment before stepping closer. Something inside me I couldn't name pushed me to strip off my clothes and slip into the water beside him, the coolness hitting my skin like a reset button. Liam turned toward me, his face frozen in something between surprise and uncertainty. Maybe it was confusion, maybe something deeper, I couldn't quite tell. But he said nothing. I glanced at him, just a flash, before letting my gaze linger longer. I heard myself say, "You should probably take those shorts off too. You need a proper rinse." I'm still not sure why I said it. Maybe I wanted to take control. Or maybe I just needed to interrupt whatever strange current was starting to build between us. Maybe I was testing both of us, measuring who we were in that moment. He stood still for a beat before quietly complying, letting his shorts fall. And there we were, two bodies tangled in water while rain poured from above, washing away everything but what we felt. I looked away and softly asked if he could help me wash my back. He nodded, his touch just as gentle as it had been before. But the tension hanging in the air between us was impossible to miss. The second his hand brushed my waist, I tensed without meaning to. The downpour around us drowned out the world, but inside me, a storm was brewing. I could have stepped away. I could have stopped time altogether. But instead, I moved closer, took his hands in mine, and brought them to my chest. He didn't flinch. What came after is hard to describe, like stepping into a dream that doesn't make sense even while you're in it. It wasn't slow or soft. It was immediate, full of urgency, driven by loneliness and something we couldn't name, and riddled with flaws from the start. But I didn't fight it. I didn't even want to. When it was over, we stood still beneath the rushing water, letting it spill over us like it could somehow rinse away what had just happened. It couldn't. He pulled me into him, close and unfamiliar, yet somehow it felt like a memory. I let myself lean into him. We didn't say a word as we dried off. Silently, we picked up our things and walked back to the car. I watched him from the corner of my eye, his face flushed, his body stiff. That's when it hit me, I had broken something sacred, something I could never fix. We had crossed a line that wouldn't blur again. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt alive. The drive home began in thick silence. The car felt too small, like the air itself was pressing down on us, heavy and suffocating. I gripped the wheel, trying to concentrate on the road, but my mind was spinning. I could still feel him, his hands, his warmth, the weight of what we'd just done following us like a ghost. I kept stealing glances at him as I drove. He sat completely rigid in the passenger seat, his gaze locked on the passing scenery outside the window. His cheeks were flushed, his jaw clenched so tightly I thought he might grind his teeth down to dust. He didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stared like he was trying to disappear into the horizon. Then, out of nowhere, he spoke, so quietly I almost didn't catch it. "Mom," he said. Just that one word, but it hung in the air like thunder. His voice cracked with hesitation, as if it had taken everything in him to say it. I felt my throat tighten. I couldn't bring myself to look at him, so I kept my eyes on the road and said nothing. He started to mumble something else, disjointed words, barely formed, about what had happened, what we'd done. But I couldn't make myself respond. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. I wanted to act like I hadn't heard. I wanted to pretend the words had never left his lips. For a split second, I considered brushing it off completely, changing the subject, making a joke, anything to chase away the suffocating weight in the car. But what would have been the point? There was no pretending anymore. Not after the line we'd crossed. Not after everything we'd already allowed to happen. I took a breath, but it came out uneven. Shaky. Weak. I don't know, I finally said, my voice barely louder than his had been. And it wasn't a lie. It was the most honest thing I could say in that moment. Because I truly didn't know. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know how we'd gotten here. I didn't know what was going to come next. All I did know was that something fundamental had changed between us. And there was no going back to how things were before. The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. Words had become too fragile to carry the weight of what we were feeling. So we said nothing. Just sat there, letting the heaviness fill the space between us like fog. Eventually, the familiar curve of our street came into view. I slowed the car as we approached the driveway, my chest tight, my mind racing. I pulled in and turned off the engine. The soft click of the ignition sounded impossibly loud in the quiet. Still, we didn't move. Neither of us reached for the door handle. Neither of us looked at the other. We just sat there, paralyzed, caught somewhere between guilt and grief, between fear and longing. And as we sat in the darkened car, I realized this wasn't just a pause. This was the edge of something. Something that, once crossed, would reshape everything, forever. Eventually, Liam turned toward me. Not just a glance, he looked at me, fully, like he was seeing something he'd been afraid to face until now. And the moment our eyes met, I felt my stomach twist into a knot so tight it nearly stole my breath. It wasn't guilt staring back at me. It wasn't shame or hesitation. It wasn't even confusion. It was desire. A deep, aching kind of longing, the kind that builds over time, quietly, secretly, until it can't be hidden anymore. "How long have you been carrying this around?" he asked, his voice low and steady, like he wasn't really asking but waiting for me to finally say it out loud. I swallowed hard. Something inside me cracked open like a fault line. My defenses, my denial, all the careful lies I'd told myself, they all splintered in that second. I met his eyes and whispered, longer than I'd ever want to admit. The silence that followed was heavy, but not uncomfortable. It was a silence full of knowing. Full of everything we hadn't dared speak before. Outside, the night had settled deep around us. The only sounds were the occasional rustle of wind through the trees and the soft creak of the house behind us, like it, too, was holding its breath. We sat there in the dark, suspended between two worlds, the one we came from and the one we'd just stepped into. Neither of us moved. Neither of us seemed to know whether we should go inside and pretend nothing had happened, slip back into the old version of ourselves, and carry on like we hadn't just unmade everything. But Liam wasn't ready to go back. As I reached for the door handle, still unsure, still wavering, he leaned in slowly and kissed me. His lips barely touched mine at first, light, trembling, full of hesitation. Like he was offering me a way out. Like he was waiting for me to flinch, to turn away and remind us both that this was wrong. But I didn't. I kissed him back. And in doing so, I let go of the fear, the questions, the guilt pressing against my ribs. I let myself fall into that moment. Whether it was the raw ache of years spent feeling invisible, or the way his eyes held me like I was the only person in the world, I surrendered. Right there, just steps away from our front door, I gave in to something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. He pulled me closer, wrapping his arms around me with a tenderness that felt overwhelming. His embrace wasn't rushed or reckless, it was reverent. His hands found their way across my body like they belonged there, like they knew every contour, every place I had forgotten deserved to be touched with care. And suddenly I wasn't tired. I wasn't small. I wasn't just someone's wife or mother or leftover version of who I used to be. I was wanted. Wanted in a way that made everything else, Ethan, the years of routine, the silence that had filled our house, dissolve into nothing. There, under the blanket of night, in the stillness of our driveway, something inside me reignited. It was sharp and consuming and far more powerful than I was ready for. But I didn't resist. I clung to that feeling like it was the last bit of truth I had left. I can't say how long we stood like that. Eventually, we made it inside, but the memory of how we got there is hazy. All I remember is his hand holding mine, the quiet between us so loud it buzzed. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. The second we crossed the threshold, it was like something burst. The air inside was charged, thick with everything we'd been trying not to say for years. And finally, we weren't holding back anymore. The days that followed were soaked in confusion. Liam stuck close, always finding little reasons to brush against me or catch my eye when he thought no one noticed. I begged myself to stop this, to walk away and put an end to whatever it had become. But every time I looked at him, I saw the same emptiness I carried in my own chest. It felt like we were mirrors of each other, carrying the same emptiness, the same quiet ache. And deep down, I knew I wasn't going to walk away. The truth is, I didn't even want to. At night, when the world outside was wrapped in darkness, I'd lie next to Ethan in bed, lost in thought. I'd listen to his steady breathing and feel how our bodies moved in rhythm, and yet, my mind would drift. I'd think of Liam, just a room away, and remember the way his hands had once made me feel alive again. Before falling asleep, I'd curl into myself, folding up tight like something small and coiled. I was fully aware that what was happening wasn't sustainable. I wasn't delusional. I knew it couldn't lead anywhere good. Still, I couldn't seem to stop this growing distance between me and everything else. The tension built up day by day, until one night, it finally exploded. It happened while I was working late in the kitchen with Ethan. Ava was already fast asleep. Liam and I had ended up doing the dishes together, just a simple task to quiet my racing thoughts. I could feel him behind me, his presence pressing closer with each movement. He looked at me the same way he had that day on the beach. "Liam," I whispered softly, hoping I could somehow pull him back, steer him away from what I knew was coming. But he didn't stop. He stepped closer, so close I could feel his breath against the back of my neck. "Mom," he said quietly. "I can't stop thinking about it." I froze. My heart slammed against my chest so hard I thought it might crack open. I wanted to tell him to leave, to walk away. He turned as if to go, as if this time he really would. But I couldn't let him. I called out to him and said the one thing I should have kept buried. I told him I couldn't stop either. And that was it. That was the moment everything shattered. He kissed me again, this time with a hunger that stole the breath from my lungs. In a brief second of madness, I kissed him back. I shoved aside every ounce of guilt, every thought of Ethan, of the life we'd spent years building together. Nothing else existed, just Liam. Just the person who had somehow reignited something in me since that day on the shore. Since then, nothing has felt the same. It's like the rhythm of life we once knew slipped away, and I don't know if we'll ever get it back. We crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. No matter how I try to frame it in my mind, it won't go away. What began as a fleeting moment has turned into a heavy, immovable burden. The shame weighs on me, yet strangely, it doesn't make me stop. And that's what scares me the most. Every day I look at Ethan, and I see our daughter Ava. I wonder how they haven't noticed. How they can go on, completely blind to what's really happening under their roof. But maybe they're just too wrapped up in their own lives to see mine falling apart. Or maybe I've just become better at hiding it. Still, I know this can't go on forever. Secrets don't stay buried. And when the truth finally forces its way out, it's going to tear through everything I've tried so hard to protect. I've told myself again and again that this is a mistake. That Liam deserves better. That I do, too. But then he touches me, just the brush of his fingers, or he gives me that look, like I'm the only one who matters, and suddenly none of that logic holds. He makes me feel alive in a way I thought I'd lost forever. Maybe I never had it at all. And that's the part one have to face head on. Right now, I don't know how to fix this. I don't even know where to begin. That's why I'm sharing this, because maybe someone out there has been through something similar. Maybe someone knows what to do when you've lost control and can't find the exit. I'm asking for help. For advice. If you've lived through anything even remotely close to this, or know someone who has, I'm open to hearing your story. I need to believe I'm not the only one who's ever ended up in a place like this. Let this be a warning if nothing else, loneliness has a way of cracking you open in ways you never expect. It can drive you into places you swore you'd never go. Don't let yourself drift as far off course as I have. Don't wait for your world to fall apart before you finally see what's happening. Because once you cross that line, there's no turning back. Thank you for listening. If this video spoke to you in any way, please give it a like and consider subscribing. I'll be sharing more in time. I just hope someone out there hears me. Sometimes, the worst betrayals aren't the ones we deal to others, they're the ones we commit against ourselves.
Bye bye.